Spectacular funnel cloud, possible tornado near Arbo, July 17th, 2007. Dense curtains of hail drifting north, accompanied by thunder and CG lightning over the Glens Macarrah, during the afternoon of July 17th, 2007. In the foreground, Connor MacDonald zooms in on the approaching storm with his camcorder. A large funnel cloud would appear moments later to the east, instantly turning the day into a roaring success and changing our lives forever. This was the convective outlook. Widespread thundery activity for much of UK and Ireland, 0900 to 2100. Convergence derived funnel activity, Northern Ireland, 1200 to 2100. Quote, this is from UK Weather World. If we look at the surface air stream across the UK today, we can see that the air mass originates from somewhere in the mid-Atlantic, hence the cool surface temperatures expected. Lapse rates are unlikely to be as steep as we would like to see today, though there is room for solar heating during the afternoon, which could sway the balance somewhat. Particular note needs to be made to PVA. This has been lacking lately and could easily increase the potential for deep lift, especially where it interacts with upper shear. Almost a north-south divide today, with moderate instability to the north and shear to the south, with some subsidence in between. This boundary, in my opinion, could be breached later this afternoon as lapse rates increase. With 20 knot shear expected up to 850 millibars and a 45-degree directional shear, we do in fact just have enough potential for a vertically sheared tornado or two. Further directional and speed shear are above this level, acquiring the basic parameter for rotating storms. I think we all have a pretty good chance of seeing a thunderstorm today, and possibly the odd funnel cloud. So that's from UK Weather World from Tony Gilbert. The day begins, unforgettable convective action. Tuesday, July 17th, 2007 was another interesting day for anyone interested in severe weather and storm chasing in Northern Ireland. During the previous evening, July 16th, Connor and I had a very successful chase to the top of Slieve Gallion Mountain, which is an intense experience which we didn't expect to beat for some time. You can read the chase report on my website. That day, the 16th, is very important actually, because that's the first time Connor and I did an official chase on the road. Anyway, the following day, July 17th, was another hot, humid summer's day, and convective clouds had been boiling up in the form of beautiful white CBs or cumulonimbus, dominating the weather between periods of blue sky and strong sunshine. By late afternoon, a storm was brewing, and I first heard cracks of thunder, following bright flashes of lightning, which got my curiosity going. I was standing at my back door watching the activity with a mug of tea, planning in my mind the kind of images I hoped to get in a few minutes' time when the storm got closer. I was thinking about my mate Connor MacDonald, who could be absolutely anywhere today. With his keen interest in weather like this, I was sure he had his eye to the sky no matter what he was doing or where he was located. The time was 1400 BST, and it was at this moment when I heard the sound of a car moving swiftly through my estate with an engine and high rev and dust billowing into the air from the wheels. Whoever the driver was, he was in a serious rush. I looked out the front window and realised with delight that it was Connor with his girlfriend Christina, which had confirmed my suspicion that he had been watching the convective action intently. Connor parked his car at a strategic location on a large hill, which gave an excellent view to the horizon, and no doubt he planned to take advantage of the topography in the hope of catching the storm with his digital camcorder. I grabbed my own bridge camera and jogged up to the parked car to join Connor and Christina, who were already studying the sky. The dark belly under a large anvil passed over, dumping rain and hail, forcing us to take shelter inside the car, which we were very glad to have. The hail was thumping the car and bouncing off the narrow road, and within the darkened sky and through this rain-smeared window, We could see the staccato-style strikes of numerous cloud-to-ground and in-cloud orange-coloured lightning strikes, which seemed to appear at random. Perhaps 30 seconds later, the core of the storm passed us by, so we exited the car and walked across the muddy, rain-soaked road as the rain-free base drifted over our heads. Hot rays of splendid sunshine hit the back of our necks as cleared gaps appeared in the sky. The storm was passing from southwest to northeast at a very slow speed, and facing north we could see a white fibrous wall consisting of dense falling shafts of hailstones and rain. It was at this point that we were rewarded with the largest convective clouds we have ever seen in our lives, as 3 giant CBs towered into the sky, one in the north and the other 2 in the southwest and east. The anvils on top were both beautiful and menacing in profile, with their sharply defined, wedge-shaped, gleaming white thunderheads stretching for a breathtaking distance in azimuth and reaching to the zenith, where it competed with the sun for attention. The most impressive anvil was the one in the east, which was so long that it covered the entire northeast to southeast sky sector. To the north, the hail curtains were dumping their icy deluge over the rooftops of Willow Glen and on into the surrounding countryside beyond. Rapid orange-coloured CG lightning strikes provided us with plenty of action, which was followed with loud, reverberating rolls of thunder, which was the strangest I've ever heard. The thunder did not stop, but continued for at least 5 minutes without a break. I already had the camera in action, and by this stage I had squeezed off 100 images at a fast shutter speed in the hope of catching the lightning strikes. I reset the camera from 5 megapixels to 3 megapixels, as in million pixels, in brackets, which I now regret as the resolution was lower, to provide me with more images to play with, as the space on my 256 megabyte memory card was quickly depleting. I crouched down and knelt against the front bumper of Connor's car to steady my arms, and took another 100 shots, while Connor took video of the retreating storm. While previewing my images, Connor and I discussed the finer points of the storm, and about the funnel cloud and tornado risk which had been issued for Northern Ireland today. We had always wanted to see either a funnel cloud or a tornado, which had been a primary goal for us, and we wondered if we ever would, especially after we had tried so hard during yesterday's chase up the mountain. As the lightning disappeared to the north, I glanced casually over my right shoulder facing towards the southeast, when I suddenly got a severe shock. Hanging down from the west edge of the rain-free base, and below the giant anvil, was a bulging black funnel descending downward. I could barely speak a word, so I just pointed in the general direction, shouting, "Connor!" I had never seen a real funnel before. However, I knew instantly that this was one of exceptional size. Things suddenly turned crazy, and time seemed to slow as our eyes took in the scene. I was focused on the funnel so much that I got very narrow tunnel vision, as nothing else around me existed anymore. We immediately went into combat mode in order to get a photographic record of what we were seeing. This was what we had dreamed about, and now we needed reactions and discipline. I recall thinking at the time that all those hundreds of hours spent taking images of weather and astronomical subjects would pay off during a moment like this. We got into position and Connor began shooting video footage, while I began taking images, which was a major challenge, as I had to set the camera between 150mm and 200mm to get a decent close-up shot while trying to hold the camera steady, and at this magnification it was not easy, and my shaking hands, due to the excitement, did not help matters. Manually focusing the camera was a nightmare, as sunlight was reflecting off the LCD screen, which resulted in me seeing little or none of the funnel through it, so I just kept snapping while shifting the focus in and out, which turned out to be a good decision. The funnel had now lowered halfway to the ground, stopped, then started to ascend again before lowering back down, flirting with the ground. At this stage it was now a large wedge, and over time its snout began to narrow and lower all the way to what seemed to be the ground. A narrow pencil-thin condensation funnel extended from the bottom and appeared to touch the earth on at least 2 occasions. At this stage we were frantic with adrenaline, and Connor suggested that we gave chase in the car to see the spectacle up close. As the 3 of us began running to the car, the funnel began to get even more exciting, so we stayed our ground and continued, watching as it narrowed and twisted into a classic tornadic shape before it rose in height and roped out. The long narrow tube seemed to drag in the air, pointing to the southwest, then split at the centre, leaving 2 dark tubes hanging in the sky before they both dissipated into the air. The funnel had gone. It was visible from 1635 to 1650 for a duration of 15 minutes. After we collected our thoughts, all 3 of us believed it had touched down on the ground, making this a possible tornado. But where did it touch down? In that direction were the small towns of Gulladuff, Lavey and Macrofelt. I reckoned that someone else, possibly driving through the countryside, must have seen this. Even though it was many miles distance from us, it still had a large apparent diameter in the sky, so it must have been of exceptional size. We parted company and reported our account with images and footage to the UK Weather World for discussion. I followed this up by contacting several newspapers and the BBC with the intention of hearing about other sightings. So here is a selection of images I took of the funnel. Remember, this was taken on my old bridge camera, which wasn't a very good camera back then, and the white balance was off. This was actually a really dark grey with a black base in reality. The camera is showing up a slight blue white balance here for some reason. So this is looking southeast at the main updraft area of the huge storm. Funnel is dropping out from the rain-free base. Note the area of heavy rain falling and hail to the left. The cell is moving right to left in the image. The updraft base looks slanted also. Funnel getting bigger and with a huge wedge-shaped profile. When I say wedge, I actually mean cone. It's wider than it is tall. Cropped in close from the original frame, I was beside myself with excitement. I couldn't believe this was happening, and also how big it was. Connor and I were shouting and roaring and cursing out loud and making comments about what we were seeing, along with the rapid changing shape. Much of that conversation I can't quote on here, as it would be for adult ears only. Powerful motions going on here, indicated by the twin bulges. The 2 bulges have merged into a single entity and began taking on a slender form. Extremely close to the ground here, there is a transparent condensation funnel extending down from the main funnel, which tried its best to reach down to the earth. Note the bulges to the left hand side of the funnel, indicating rapid rotation. Can you get much closer than that? Almost a full-blown tornado. There must have been surface effects from this. During the excitement, we both agreed that if this were on the ground, it could be strong enough to overturn a car. It certainly looked that way from its size and the way it was moving. Note faint debris under the funnel. This is a deep crop. If only I could do justice by explaining to you the changing shape and rotation. However, it would be impossible for me to do so. You really had to have been here to have seen it. I'm sure my jaw was on the floor at this point. Several veteran storm chasers from the USA and Australia have pointed out to me that this image and the one before appear to show actual debris or dirt directly under the condensation funnel, which implies that this circulation was probably on the ground and hence a tornado. Funnel lifting back up again while curving gracefully into a classic tornadic profile. As I watched, I kept thinking, was this Northern Ireland? It looked more like Tornado Alley. Another deep crop. As we watched, this menacing looking tube twisted and probed the air, unsure of what to do next. It lifted up into the air, then back down again, as if deciding whether to touch down or not, with the snout seemingly sniffing the air. Watching it do what it wanted was an unbelievable thrill, while thunder rumbled in the distance. more slender now and continuing to bend as it lifted. This was awesome to watch. Cropped in close. Oh, how I wished I had a proper DSLR and telephoto lens to do this justice. However, I had to use what I had and what I could afford. These were taken with my trusty Fujifilm S5600 bridge camera. However, despite the low resolution and difficult operating mode, I still felt proud that I caught this. Funnel now weakening and roping out. Horizontal striation lines clearly visible at image top. Complete rope out. The funnel breaks into two while both sections continue to rotate in the air. Cropped in. Watching this was like watching a dark bloated worm dissected in two with both segments of the tube still rotating within the sky. This image was taken 15 minutes after the funnel from Toom and was kindly sent to me by Paul M. This was the storm which produced the funnel, except we were on the other side of it, on the west. You can see the huge anvil above. A quick check on the BBC weather website showed that someone else had seen this very same funnel. One lady from Coal Island had taken this excellent image with her mobile phone camera, showing the funnel almost touching the ground. I apologise as I don't know her name at this moment in time. This photograph, actually her photograph, if you darken it down, it actually looks like it's on the ground there. To me, that looks like a tornado. Taro investigation. A few weeks later, I received an email from expert tornado investigator Dr. John Terrell from University of Cork in Ireland. John is a prolific and highly experienced tornado damage detective and does field work for the Tornado and Storm Research Organisation, otherwise known as Taro. John and I began corresponding via email, and I gave him all the information I knew on our funnel sighting. He also had chosen a number of key features on the horizon on my images, asking for their identification, such as buildings, pylons, and a distant chimney stack of very distinctive shape. However, it was too difficult to make a positive ID, so I gave him a vague location where I suspected the funnel had been, which was a number of miles away and possibly over the vicinity of McCann's quarry. John informed me that he would be visiting Northern Ireland the following week for a field investigation, and I suggested meeting him when he arrived, although the exact date hadn't been decided on yet. Several days later, I arrived back home after doing a little weather photography in the Mackara countryside, when my sister informed me that she had seen a car with a southern number plate up on the hill and a man looking at a map. I put two and two together and walked up the hill to his location and said, "Excuse me, but by any chance are you John?" And the reply was, "Hello, Martin," followed by a handshake. It was Dr. John Terrell from Taro, and what a coincidence it was. Was I impressed? You bet. Because with very little information and nothing more than an image with a narrow field of view, he was now standing on the exact spot where Connor and I had seen the funnel. We talked about the sighting and surveyed the horizon with binoculars, matching up features visually with what was on the black and white print of my image, which was cross-checked with John's OS map of the area. Plotted on it was the other sighting from Coal Island, which he used to triangulate a position. This was followed by an educational chat about funnel clouds and tornadoes in Ireland, their summer and winter frequency, trends and relative intensity. I learned that the topography of the land has just as an important relationship to play in the development of tornadoes as the convective activity in the atmosphere. John discussed some past cases in Ireland, which was fascinating and quite an eye-opener. Out of local interest, I asked him about the tornado which hit Achalee on New Year's Eve 2006. In fact, there were two within as many years in that area, and he showed me a map with his plots showing the damage track through a very large area, naming the land and villages it passed through in detail, as well as its track across Lough Neagh as a waterspout, which was educational to say the least. I was very impressed with his attention to detail and logical scientific methodology. The second tornado, which hit Achalee, actually damaged the property of a home belonging to a brother and sister of a good astronomical friend of mine called John McConnell, who now drives the very car which was lifted off the ground by a large tornado. It's funny how things come together to create such synchronicity. I let John get on with his work, and if he found any damage track, then he would call me the following day, and then we would visit the location together. The following day, Dr. Terrell arrived in my neighbourhood during the late afternoon with his investigation almost complete. He told me that he had found the location, but it wasn't exactly the result I had been hoping for. After hours of driving, interviewing witnesses and visiting locations, John had discovered that the funnel did not make contact with the ground, which explained why no damage had been reported. However, what was surprising was the funnel's distance. The chimney stack on my images turned out to be a key feature of the Mid-Ulster Hospital, and the red brick building to the right on the images was Macrofelt Police Barracks. This put a new angle on things. Furthermore, the funnel only appeared to touch the ground from my location because as one travels with distance in that direction, the ground gradually sloped in a downward gradient, which we could not perceive from Mackara. There seems to have been at least another witness located near Ballyrona Marina along the shore of Lough Neagh. The individual concerned was on holidays at the time, but will be making contact with John when he returns. The actual location of the funnel turned out to be within Arboe, not far from an abandoned airstrip, which is quite astonishing, as this is quite a distance from our observing location, meaning the funnel must have been of very large size indeed. As it turns out, John found a family from Arboe who not only saw it near its end stage, but managed to get images and video footage using their mobile phones, which clearly showed the funnel rotating very rapidly, and the time matched perfectly. However, Connor and I were the only witnesses who seen the entire formation and roping out of the funnel. John had marked these observations on his OS map and said he would send me a completed version from Cork, which was extremely kind of him. After 3 days in Northern Ireland, John had succeeded and got a positive result. No doubt this completes yet another of the many funnel cloud and tornado cases he has investigated in this country. I found John to be a very friendly, intelligent man who would make a great detective. And if he doesn't mind me saying so, his dedication and attention to detail reminds me of Special Agent Leroy Jeffro Gibbs from the NCIS. This was followed by another fascinating conversation about tornadoes, and I asked him how he got interested in the field. The answer was a passionate one which engaged my interest even further. One tornado event in Southern Ireland was so intense that large mobile homes had been thrown over a 12-foot fence, and there wasn't even a mark on the fence itself, suggesting the homes were much higher when airborne. His description was very vivid, and I understood why he was interested now. John took some time out to visit my home, where I showed him a few funnel cloud and weather images of my own, which was very kind of him to check out, and he gave his time freely, which was very generous. Then he left to prepare for his long drive home. John, if you're reading this or listening to this years later, I would like to thank you for your time, for sharing your interest, for going out of your way to keep me informed, and for being a fascinating individual. You now have me hooked on tornadoes. Just to clarify for listeners who don't know, a funnel cloud is a tornado in the air. When it doesn't make contact with the ground, it's called a funnel cloud. However, once contact has been made on the ground with obvious debris or damage, then it becomes a tornado. A tornado may develop from a funnel, but contact from the ground is the defining difference between the two labels. Much in the same way, a meteoroid, meteor, and meteorite are 3 different stages of the same event, depending on where it is. It's interesting to note that had the funnel extended lower, or higher ground was located underneath, then the July 17th funnel cloud could well have touched down. One thing is for certain, I will never forget the events which took place on this day, and I'm glad to have been involved with such a rare event, an experience which I was delighted to share with Connor and Christina. This funnel was the most exciting daytime natural phenomena I have ever witnessed to date, and it took me a full 2 weeks to come down from the high. I have now developed a keen interest in such events and extreme weather, with the hope of observing more of these spectacular transient events. I will be introducing more severe weather related events and images on my website and of course on YouTube. So keep watching and keep checking out my site at nightskyhunter.com. Okay, Just to end this off, was this a tornado? Despite no obvious damage being found at the site location, one has to ask if there was a tornado. Connor and I were the only observers who witnessed the entire life cycle of this funnel from an elevated position, and we both had the impression it was affecting the ground. However, there were no eyewitnesses at close range or underneath the funnel to confirm if there were any ground effects at the time. And any ground effects over open countryside would not be obvious to the untrained eye anyway, especially if the vortex was weak or over an area which had little or no dust to reveal ground contact, or with the view obstructed by trees. Furthermore, it is well known by experienced storm chasers and tornado scientists that the visible condensation funnel does not have to be observed reaching the ground for a tornado to be present. In fact, the invisible section of the vortex often extends much further down than one can see with the naked eye. With that being said, chasers who see a funnel 2/3 of the way to the ground will often call it a tornado for this very reason, and considering just how substantial, well defined and close to the ground the Arbo funnel is on several of these images, does present a case for a tornado based on this reasoning alone. The above image is a very deep crop from images 8 and 9 further back, which seem to show a faint debris cloud directly below the funnel. The white arrows point out at least 2 large pieces of debris in the air, possibly leaves or branches or dirt stirred into the air at considerable height by the vortex. These features are not present on any of the other images except the main image showing the funnel at its closest point to the ground, which is very compelling. So was this an actual tornado caught in the act? Quite possibly. So that brings to an end my chase account wrote back in 2007 from this exciting event. I wish I could have done it more justice to you. If you've looked at their website report viewing the images do not do this justice at all, and my description does not do it justice at all. This event was absolutely amazing to watch in the flesh, from a visual standpoint and an emotional standpoint. The adrenaline, the excitement, the rush, the shock and awe, and the wonder, and just completely caught off guard by nature pretty much. Seeing this after us, it was interesting because the day, maybe 2 weeks before that happened, Connor and I were standing on top of Glenshane Pass on a back road. There were storms that day over Belfast and Antrim, none in our area, but we were on a hill and looking to the east and we could see the tops of storms in the distance. And we were standing there on a nice mild summer's day, just admiring the cloud tops and taking photographs. And we were talking about, there's been so many FCs short for funnel cloud, so many funnel clouds being reported across the UK during that summer, and there were amazing images appearing on the UK Weatherboard forum. And we were saying, wouldn't it be great to see a funnel cloud? It became our goal, our dream, to see a funnel cloud in Northern Ireland. But even though we talked about it, we thought we'll have to be doing this for a long time. It's going to take years before we ever catch that kind of trophy. But little did we think in a week or two that we'd be catching our very first funnel cloud, and to this day, the best funnel cloud I've ever seen. This funnel cloud is interesting for many reasons. It's the biggest I've seen, it's the most powerful I've seen. It was brutal looking to the naked eye. It was dark grey. The storm base was massive and dark too, very solid. The funnel was long lasting, went through a whole smorgasbord of forms, and visually to us at the time it looked like it was on the ground. Even though there was eyewitnesses interviewed by John, I don't believe the eyewitnesses actually seen the tornado through its entire life cycle. It was mentioned that they had seen it near the end of its life cycle up close, but nobody had actually seen it before that. So remember, this was going for 15 minutes, and on several occasions it dropped close to the ground during that 15-minute apparition. So, and considering that the funnel doesn't need to go all the way to the ground, the visible part of it, to be a tornado, I do suspect this was a tornado. I really do. Based on the photographs, based on my memory of it, based on Connor's memory of it, and also a good friend of mine, John Fagan. John and I didn't know each other back in 2007, but by some strange coincidence, John had seen this exact same funnel cloud too, like coming back from work one day. He has an account of it up on his Facebook page. He's seen this too, and he snapped pictures of it on his mobile phone and video. And to him, from his point of view, he said it looked like it was on the ground. I am absolutely convinced this was a tornado. It was over open ground, so there was no damage. There's a suggestion on the lower res images of possible debris or dirt or something being lofted into the air below the vortex. And even just visually, it looks like a tornado. I can't prove it. If anyone was to ask me, have I ever seen a tornado in this country, I would say yes, this was a tornado. But it's just guessing at the moment. But until I capture a clear-cut tornado, which I hope will happen soon, this is the best tornadic vortex event I've ever experienced in this country. So thank you very much for listening. It was nice reminiscing about this event. I so wish I had my 600D and 100 to 400mm lens. With that setup, I easily could have filled the frame with this funnel cloud and it would have looked incredible. But even though I'm zoomed in, what did I say earlier, 150 plus on the bridge camera, it still was a large object of large angular size in the sky when we were observing it with the naked eye. I mean, this was an eye-catching sight, and it was over Arboe on the west side of Lough Neagh. That's quite a distance from Mackara to be observing across the countryside, and to us it was so large it looked like it was only like 10 miles away at most. Maybe not even that, maybe 5. It was that big. So a very impressive sight indeed. I hope to catch something like it again in the future, or even better, who knows. But thanks for listening everyone, and I'll catch you on the next one.